For some of us, coming into a new year can hold the hope and expectation for something better, especially if the year behind us was challenging, difficult, held conflict, tension, or even loss. We pause or reset after we turn the page in our planner or buy a new calendar. The motivation can be big, but the daily discipline of getting it done can feel out of touch when life goes on as usual, even though we turn the page into a new year. And when we decide to make a resolution and daily life continues at its usual pace, the excitement and motivation can turn into frustration and disappointment. Hello and welcome to Mom's Way to Wellness. If you are a mom who feels lonely, unseen, and overwhelmed with the demands of motherhood, you are in the right place. I am your host, Ida Maravillas. I help overwhelmed moms transform their challenges into mental health and generational well-being as we talk about the struggles of motherhood, parenting, and mental health through a lens of faith. I offer resources and guidance to help you work through the challenges that are impacting your relationship with yourself and with others. Let's get into today's episode. Have you ever considered that you don't have to create a whole new version of yourself in the new year? We can feel the weight of expectations as we enter into January or even once it's already arrived. Expectations can come from family pressures, our culture, social media, or even within our own mind as we look for ways to improve ourselves in one way or another. Today, I want to invite you to be gentle in your approach to the new year and consider some ways that you can take some of the pressure off. This new year or season doesn't necessarily require grand resolutions and promises of reinvention. Today, we're going to talk about the pressure of New Year expectations, why resolutions feel appealing, why resolutions don't always work, and how you can reframe your approach to what the new year may hold for you. January is often associated with the time of year when resolutions are made. Maybe it's even December as the new year approaches. For some of us, coming into a new year can hold the hope and expectation for something better, especially if the year behind us was challenging, difficult, held conflict, tension, or even loss. After a hard season, the idea of putting things behind us and feeling hopeful for a fresh start can sound exciting and motivating. It becomes what may seem like the perfect time to picture a better version of ourselves, our circumstances, and even of our lives. The anticipation of something new and improved is so exciting. Coming up with a goal to improve ourselves in some type of way can also feel expected, as we feel the weight of the things that we carry and hear about the hopeful expectations and resolutions of others. And while it is good for us to want things to be positive or to strive to become better versions of ourselves in some ways, life doesn't necessarily pause or reset after we turn the page in our planner or buy a new calendar. The motivation can be big, but the daily discipline of getting it done can feel out of touch when life goes on as usual, even though we turn the page into a new year. We usually carry on with the same demands, responsibilities, and relationships that we are connected to, even though the year is new. The pressure to focus on a resolution can be high, and depending on what we already have going on, it can also feel out of reach sooner rather than later. And when we decide to make a resolution and daily life continues at its usual pace, the excitement and motivation can turn into frustration and disappointment. This is not because we are failing, but because we asked ourselves for big changes without considering our capacity to make those changes happen. There is a lot of meaningful consideration that's usually behind the resolutions that are made. In fact, I looked up some different trends of the types of New Year resolutions made by moms, and I was surprised at how the themes for last year sounded like resolutions I would even sign up for. They consisted of prioritizing self and mental health, and if that's something you're prioritizing, that's why you're here. That is a priority of this podcast and the message that I have to share with moms. And it really was at the top of the list of the things that I looked up. The other things were mindful and present parenting, simplifying and connecting, saving money, spending less, eating healthier and exercising more, reading more, getting organized. I even saw a lot of post highlights about letting go of perfection. These all sound like good things to incorporate into our lives. They actually reveal some of the things that we may be longing for. Like, these are things that we might be stressed out about, things that might feel overwhelming, things that we might feel disconnected from in our lives. And for a long time, I caved under the pressure of thinking that just because it was a new year, if I made a resolution and I entered into a year with big dreams, that things were going to change. But the same pace of life, responsibilities, and priorities that I juggled kept getting in the way of the motivation that helped me create the resolution to begin with. Eventually, I realized that the problem wasn't my motivation. It was that I kept trying to add more without adjusting what I was already carrying. And I wonder if that's what happens when resolutions don't work out. The ideas were big, and the little everyday parts of life were overlooked. We look at goals and plans that don't happen and say that life got in the way, when the reality is that our life is the way we have to juggle all of the things that come up. In fact, a few years ago, I came across some research about New Year resolutions, and it turns out that about 80 to 90% of those resolutions fail within the first couple of weeks in January. I felt seen, like, okay, I'm not alone. These things don't happen for a lot of us. But it was interesting to me because the second Friday in January has also become known as Quitter's Day based on this data. And so I started thinking, how can we want a whole New Year's resolution to change us within 2 weeks, when it actually takes an average of 66 days to even form a habit? And the idea of a New Year resolution means something for the entire year. So, while potential goals can be positive things to strive for, I want to encourage you to slow down and take a moment to check in with yourself. Because when we check in with ourselves and acknowledge where we've been, it can help us figure out where we need to go and how we can move forward. It can help us recognize who we really are, who we're called to be, and the real life we live on a daily basis. Here are some questions to help you check in with yourself as you consider the year ahead or another season you're walking into. As you consider these questions, feel free to jot them down or download them from my website if you need a visual to refer to. There are 5 questions, and question number 1 is, how do I feel about the ways I experienced this past year or season? 2, what felt like it was life-giving in the year or season that just ended? 3, what felt heavy or hard to carry? 4, is there something I need to let go of as I move forward? 5, is there something I feel called to carry with me into this next year or season? There's no need to rush as you consider these questions. Discernment happens in still and quiet moments, which are hard to come by when we are busy moms. So take your time. As you reflect on these questions, I ask you to consider the feelings and thoughts that come up for each one. As you sort what feels right for you, I want to remind you that only you know what everyday life looks like for you, what your schedule looks like, what you are committed to, what the needs of your family are, and hopefully what your own needs are as well. As you consider all of this, if you decide to make a resolution, I'm cheering you on. And if you decide not to make one, I'm here to tell you that it's okay, especially if you have checked in with what you have the capacity to carry. Because again, only you know how much you're carrying, And only you know how much change is realistic and sustainable to add to what you already have going on in your life. The key takeaway today is that you don't need to completely reinvent yourself in order to move forward into a new year or season. It's okay to acknowledge where you're at and acknowledge and use that information to inform your next steps. I hope this helps you feel a sense of relief and a little less pressure. Before we wrap up, I want to invite you into the Mom's Way to Wellness community beyond the podcast. I share a monthly newsletter filled with encouragement, reflection, and opportunities to connect. And you get to share feedback on topics you would like to hear more about. If you would like to take another step into this community, just visit idamaravillas.com and sign up. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Please subscribe and leave a review. This will help others find the show. If you would like to receive additional resources on motherhood and wellness, you can join my community by subscribing to my email list at idamaravillas.com. Remember, wellness is possible one step at a time.